Hello, Internet! Welcome to episode 271 of the Assorted Calibers podcast. The Second Amendment podcast is a little bit for everyone. I'm Weer'd, and with me tonight, she's the greatest hostess in the entire universe for so many reasons, because you had a show last week. I wasn't thinking there was going to be one. Erin Paulette! How you doing, Erin?
What happens in Vegas stays in Vegas, Weer'd.
I mean... Not if it happens to me, because I think I've told everyone the story about getting propositioned by a extremely high-end call girl while coming out of the Mandarin Oriental Hotel at like 1 o'clock in the morning.
I didn't get propositioned at all, which is quite unfortunate. But so yeah, I was at the Liberal Gun Club's convention, which is okay. Despite the word convention, it's more like we're all going to get together for a couple of days and have classes and shoot all sorts of things. And then at the end, we're going to have a big banquet and there'll be some speeches and we'll give stuff away. So it was more like a really expensive blog shoot.
Mm-hmm.
I did get to do some shooting. So what happened was, I hear convention and I think more of a proper convention. And I bring my swag and I set up a table and I expect that I'm going to be working the table and people will be coming in and out. And I hardly interacted with people because most of them were on the range shooting. And so we were at Pro Gun Vegas, I think it was called, which is about 30 minutes outside of Las Vegas itself. And the backstop is not literally the mountains surrounding Vegas, but we're in the foothills, and you go far enough, you do see the mountains. And so yeah, most of them were taking classes or shooting all sorts of fun things, including like handguns and pirate weapons and black powder and things like that.
Did you shoot a handgun?
I did not, unfortunately. The first day, there were some logistical issues and whatever. But towards the end, I did close up early and I got to the range and I got to shoot some things. And people were saying, oh, here, shoot this, shoot this. The only thing which was kind of a novelty for me was a a revolver in .45 long Colt. And it was single action with the loading gate, and the gentleman who owned it was telling me how to use it. It's like, yeah, chill out, dude. This is basically an upscaled version of my Ruger Bearcat, and so that was fun. And I think I bullseyed the target at. They told me the distance. I don't remember what it was. I'm still a little fried. I came in yesterday.
I've seen the picture. It looks, it looks like probably at least 50 feet. It might be a little further than that.
I actually thought it was maybe closer to 20 feet.
Okay.
But, it was proper defensive distance, but it was a small target. And, I got, it wasn't like a competition grouping, but, acceptable combat accuracy. All the hits were to the chest. And the third shot was a bullseye. So that was really fun. And the second day, I didn't do any shooting because I loaned my earmuffs to the amazing newbie. And before you ask what that is, yes, there is a story. It's a very involved story. It involves two people to tell because I wasn't there for all of it. So I'm going to get together with Lara Smith on Wednesday, I think, and we're going to record the story, and hopefully we'll have it for our listeners next week. So that was fun.
Well, that's
great.
And
yeah, I know I completely glossed over the bit about the episode we had last week, and I'm really surprised but pleased at how well it came out. I thought we were going to end up just half-assing it because it was just kind of last minute, but we had a really great show. Connie came in and classed the place up beautifully. Not only because she's a classy lady, but she was bringing in all sorts of historical analogs, and that was fantastic. And David did an amazing job with editing it on short notice. And we got it uploaded a day late, but I think our patrons will understand.
Oh yeah, yep. No, that's yeah. We got it up. I ended up I wanted to give it like one more final pass, especially since actually I was listening to it on the flight home, and for whatever reason I was listening to it just on Google Drive, and when it got to the very, very end, it just cut off and ended, and I'm just like, wait, what? And for whatever reason, it stopped early. I don't know if I bumped something or what happened, but I was worried that David had cut it off a little too early and made a mistake. And so I'm like, oh, I'm actually gonna have to do some work. But no, I didn't. I just sprinkled a little magic fairy dust on it and uploaded it to all the applicable places.
You gave it the special sauce, did you?
I did give it the special sauce. I can't help it. But
so yeah, you picked a terrible week to go on vacation, my dude.
Oh, well, I mean, thankfully there were calls of like a global day of jihad, and that's not a time to be away from home base. Yeah, it was certainly an eventful week as far as following news, but yeah. I spent most of it swimming in the ocean.
I was really worried because I flew out to Vegas on Thursday, and yeah, the Global Day of Jihad was supposed to be on Friday, but I'm thinking, well, if you're going to announce something, you might just want to surprise people by doing it early. I had some concern. I wasn't so concerned that I said, no, I'm not going to go, because I got a lot of opinions from a lot of people, including someone who does professional threat assessment for a living. And I was assured, no, Hamas is being dismantled in real time. Everything's going to be okay. So I went anyway, but I was puckering. I mean, flying from Daytona Beach to Atlanta, okay, no problem, because Daytona Beach is just this tiny little, it's technically an international airport, but it's pretty small. But I figure, okay, Atlanta's a big hub, and Vegas is a big hub and a tourist destination. Oh boy. But got there safely, and then nothing happened on Friday, thankfully. And so flying home on Sunday, I was much more relaxed.
You mentioned you mentioned technically international airport. My favorite one is Presque Isle International Airport, which is in Presque Isle, Maine, and it is an international airport because you're like a 20-minute drive from Canada. But it has one airstrip and it needs to be mowed.
Yeah, there's a TV show that I like to watch called Life Below Zero, and it's on, I don't know, History, Discovery, whatever. It's about a whole bunch of Alaskans that live above the Arctic Circle, and one of the people is Sue Aikens, who runs the Kavik River Camp, and it is such an incredibly northern airfield, and I do mean airfield. It is rough gravel, and she has to frequently take out material and plane it down, some sort of tractor dragging this big bar that moves the rocks out of the way. And, she's frequently called upon to refuel like Coast Guard and things like that. And so when you are saying, okay, yeah, sometimes the airport of the airfield of whatever needs to be mowed, it's like, yeah, but you don't have to worry about like wolverines and polar bears like she does.
That's true. They have moose. Got to worry about the swamp donkeys.
You probably know this. Our listeners probably know this, but moose are, I don't know if it's common enough to be a staple, but they are a frequent diet of orcas.
I have heard that. I don't know about, I believe actually caribou, I think more so. Caribou and reindeer, which are, I believe, the same thing or slightly different subspecies of each other, but
I think so.
Yeah, but they're pretty much those of us in northern Maine use the term interchangeable. But yeah, I do know that orcas have been witnessed bumping into icebergs to flip the caribou off of it into the ocean so that they may enjoy the tasty snack that is caribou, because they're delicious.
Well, yeah, but as I think a lot of people are going, but orcas are sea-dwelling creatures and moose live on land, and apparently moose like to swim in the water.
Moose are incredibly strong swimmers, at least for giant gangly megalofauna that they are. They are big swimmers, and you can even argue that they're semi-aquatic. They really behave very similar to hippos, where they will, if they can help it, they will spend, especially in the warmer months, most of their time partially submerged in like lakes and streams.
Mm-hmm. So I have been Googling while we've been talking, and I find a web page. I'm not entirely sure if it's from the government, because it's not a .gov, but it's a .us. I don't know. Take it as you will. But, it talks about orcas have been seen killing and eating swimming moose. So I haven't found anything that absolutely proves it to my satisfaction, but there's enough going on anecdotally that makes me think it's true.
I have read similar articles, and I'm a marine biologist, so I will say I will allow it. I don't know about substantial part of their diet, but orcas are extremely vicious predators and will eat just about anything they can fit in their mouth or rip up to fit in their mouth. So,
well, maybe I should have phrased it that orcas comprise a substantial proportion of moose predators. How about that?
Yeah, I would say after polar bears are probably humans are probably number one. Oh my God, have you ever eaten moose, Aaron?
I have not.
It is so good. It is so good. I love moose meat. It's the closest thing it is to is bison. If you've had bison, that's similar to moose. So humans probably are number one, then polar bears, or maybe neck and neck. But then after that, orcas are probably easily in there. Not just from the fact that they're in the same habitat and moose do like to swim and orcas do like to eat things that are swimming in the water, but also because moose are so damn big, there are very few things that can take them down.
Yeah. Well, it's not just that they like to swim, but they like to dive. They can dive up to 20 feet.
That I did not know. I think I did remember reading that, but I've actually never seen a moose dive.
Well, I haven't seen it either, but
I've seen them swim.
It's on the internet, so it must be true. But yeah, apparently they can dive up to 20 feet in order to eat on marine vegetation.
And I do know one of the captains of the tour boat said that when putting around Portland Harbor, occasionally he would have to dodge deer because they would swim from the mainland out to the islands. So yeah, semi-aquatic ungulates. Well, shall we get to the news again? Like every other week. Like, do you remember when we used to have to scramble to get like a main topic?
No, I'm sure it happened, but
there was a time in like the low three digits when sometimes we would have some kind of vaguely Second Amendment topic because it was a slow news.
Oh, this must have been in the before times, before COVID.
Probably, but we just get like buckets and buckets and buckets of news. I literally was like updating these like an hour ago. Like there's so many news stories just piling in as we're recording. So yeah, shall we start off with like the big bombshell that's like the most recent thing to just drop?
Yeah, the one that you added, I think like about 30 minutes before we started recording.
Yeah, that's about right. Yeah, as you said, what the hell was Thomas thinking? I still haven't I've read the article, but I'm still trying to make heads or tails of it.
All right, so what's the article say, Weer'd? You found it, you introduced it.
Yeah, the title is Supreme Court Tells Fifth Circuit to Stop Its Defiance in Ghost Gun Case. This is the frame and receiver challenge that was happening, and evidently it made it all the way up to the to the Supreme Court. I hadn't quite heard that it had gotten there, and yeah, they are upholding they're siding with the ATF and saying that the ATF can regulate frames and procedures per this new advisory that we reported on. It was like over a year ago, I think.
Well, it's more than that, but it's also stating that the federal government does indeed have the authority to ban ghost guns.
Mm-hmm. Which should scare the hell out of everybody, because while you may be thinking about, when you hear the term ghost gun, you may be thinking about 3D printers, and you may be thinking about or about the 80% kits and things like that. But really, this could be just about everything. I mean, people have been making their own firearms for ages and ages and ages. I mean, the entire history of America, like most of the Revolutionary War, was fought with just handmade individual craftsmen. Like, we didn't have full size armories and all of that. It was just the local dude who likes to make guns. He makes guns.
So it's been a while since I've read about this, and I'm still somewhat jet lagged. So I admit my brain isn't working at its full capacity, but I'm reading this, and it says how last year BATFE issued regulations that required any such disassembled gun parts to carry serial numbers and require anyone buying them to pass a background check. Now, surely they don't mean any and all gun parts. I mean, how the heck would you serialize a spring, for crying out loud?
Mm-hmm.
But is that what they mean?
Like I said, this story is just broke. I have absolutely no idea. I given that all the judges sided with this, I think it was unanimous. I find it hard to believe that they would have sided that draconianly.
Well, it says here there were no noted dissents, which is not the same thing as saying no one dissented, but it sounds like no one disagreed enough to want to write a dissenting opinion. So someone might have grumbled, but went, I've got better things to do with my time.
Yeah. The one thing, again, Pollyanna alert, that could be a factor here is that it could be that there are other cases that, though there aren't any other cases, that it doesn't work. I'm just wondering if the courts are going, fine, we'll let them have this one because there's a bigger case that's going to be more encompassing. I still think that there's a large court challenge brewing somewhere just because of the level of defiance of the court. I mean, let's be honest, McDonald and Heller really weren't followed that much to a T, when we will be talking about that a little bit later on in the show. And now that NYSERPA was ruled upon, I mean, that has been essentially almost completely ignored because all the states that aren't jerks to gun owners pretty much already had constitutional carry, and the states that were being punished on it are pushing back hard. So I feel like there's going to be a larger, more definitive Second Amendment case coming up. I mean, my best guess is that it will be essentially a wide scale weapons ban case, such as going after assault weapons bans. So, which would be both, scary rifles and guns, but also high capacity magazines, which are generally lumped in assault weapons ban legislation. But we will see.
I don't know if it's going to happen this year or next year, but I do believe that the challenge to New York City's, or I guess New York State's Concealed Carry Improvement Act, which a lot of organizations have filed amicus briefs against, including OBSPP, and we partnered with the Knight Institute to object on First Amendment grounds, which is unusual. And I checked with the folks from the Knight Institute about that, asking what the heck is going on, and their response was basically, beats me. We're in the pipeline. Don't know when it's going to happen. So I know that one should be coming before the court. I don't know. They may not grant it cert. They may kick it back to a lower court. I don't know what's going to happen. But, hopefully that's a big one. Maybe that'll play into your Pollyanna. I don't know.
Yeah, but we'll see. But this is certainly a disappointing ruling. And since we are not legal experts and geeks of the court, we'll probably be talking about more this again next week with some more specifics as the true legal minds go through. But this is a late breaking news story, so I thought I would throw it in there, and probably those of you listening are probably already well versed in it.
Yeah, let's see. I sent an email to them back in July asking if they have any news to report, and my reply was, "Hi, Aaron, no news from the court so far. We were just saying that it's taking a long time, but that may not be surprising given the many complex claims raised by the case. We'll let you know if we hear anything." And that was July 4th, and I haven't heard anything. So, it's frustrating.
So do you want to introduce, you posted this next one.
Oh, so speaking of frustrating, the FBI director has talked about, and as we mentioned, the alleged global day of jihad, the FBI mentioned that there are these terror threats that are happening against the United States and against Americans around the world. And so the AmmoLand article here says FBI director warns of terrorist threats, leaves out 2A defense. And really what it comes down to is the FBI is alerting people that, stuff might happen, be ready, but completely leaves out the fact that, unlike in Israel, there are a lot of Americans who are armed and can respond immediately with lethal force if such an event occurs. Which is not to say that we shouldn't be complacent, but that is a good, if unexpected, side benefit of a lawfully armed populace, that if terrorists decide to do something, you can have an immediate response.
See also the apocryphal quote from Admiral Yamamoto about U.S. invasion. I believe it was cited as. I have heard multiple sources that say no, he never said that, but it's still a good.
But yeah, the quote about we mustn't invade America. We will find that there is a gun behind every blade of.
Yeah, exactly.
I almost said glass behind every. My God, I can't talk. Behind every braid of glass. Good God.
There it is. Jet lagged hard.
I know it. I wasn't having trouble talking before, but it's crept up on me, and now it's like I'm drunk or high or something. Whoo!
Do you have a glass of rum in front of you?
Technically, no.
Well, can you maybe technically yes would be a good idea.
I think it would only make things worse.
Worse or better?
But in conclusion, the final sentences of the article, written by David Workman, who I've met at a GRPC, he's a very nice fellow. I really think it sums it up. Ignoring the potential of such an attack being stopped by an armed citizen might be ignoring one of the nation's best assets. As the saying goes, the Second Amendment is Homeland Security in its most basic form.
Yeah, that's the way it should be, and oddly enough, yeah. Christopher Wray not being interested in that is entirely unsurprising given the way he stands. But I decided to tie that in with this story, which ties in very nicely, which is in New York City there was a pro-Palestine rally, and a Jewish, she's a city councilwoman,
Is this the same rally where there was at least one Nazi flag with swastika displayed, or was that a different one?
I mean, they're all blurry together, or which ones where they were actually cheering for the alleged killing of babies and things like that. Yeah, I don't know. They all blur together, but many of these rallies have bad actors. I'm not going to tar with a broad brush, but yeah, I have no idea. But I guarantee there were some people who were.
Okay, I just found out. So this happened at the rally on Thursday, and that is absolutely not the rally I was thinking of with the Nazi flag, because, again, I was flying on Thursday. So apparently New York City has had multiple pro-Palestinian rallies. So now that I've interrupted you, have you mentioned that this Jewish New York City Councilwoman was carrying a not terribly well concealed firearm at the rally?
That's what I was getting to. Her name is NY Vernikov, and like I said, she's Jewish, and so she was there to essentially counter protest, and in some pictures taken by third parties, she videotaped herself or had somebody videotape her there. And in that, the firearm was concealed, but in other shots, it's very obvious that she's carrying a pistol in an inside the waistband holster. Not dissimilar to the holster that Shannon Watts's bodyguards were carrying in when she was in Atlanta. She and I gotta say, well, I guess I can understand this. Really, the pictures that I see really reek of rookie mistake. Granted, all of us have been mated one way, shape, or another, or had a wardrobe malfunction around a holster. But this is really reeks of a situation where she's not daily carrying, and given that she lives in New York City, there's very little wonder why. Mm-hmm. But also, if there was a time when you might want to eschew the New York laws and carry a firearm, this might be one of those times, because again, she is Jewish and she is in the middle of a pro-Palestinian and one could argue anti-Israeli rally. So yeah. And, but go ahead.
This is a situation where I find myself going, I understand why, but I still disagree. And let me explain what I mean by that. As you said, a Jewish woman at a pro-Palestine rally, it's very logical for her to feel threatened and want to protect herself. I understand that. However, it's illegal in New York City to carry a firearm at sensitive locations, including protests. And so she broke the law. And no one should be above the law, especially a politician. Now, my remedy would be, well, if you feel threatened, don't attend. She probably felt that she needed to do something, as you say, to counter-protest. So, without endorsing her actions, this is a case of, as you say, a rookie mistake, and if she had concealed properly, this would not have been an issue. And it probably also wouldn't have been an issue if she hadn't made a spectacle of herself, by which I mean obviously posing for photographs, because when you want people to photograph you, you're going to be photographed by people who don't want to photograph you. And so, yeah, rookie mistake. And while I understand her feelings, she really shouldn't have done that.
Yeah, no, those are all valid points. I will say that with a certain level of vagueness for obvious reasons, I have worked in multiple gun-free zones and or a gun-free zone for employment. I am not making a statement about committing a crime. I am making a statement of violating the terms of my employment. There was an incident where the situations were looking a little bit more dangerous. There was some interpersonal issues at the office, and it was at a level where I'll first up say that overall I as much as I disliked it, I obeyed the employee rule for carrying of quote unquote deadly weapons, but the reason behind it was that I did the math, and the chances of me getting in a situation like her and having somebody notice that I'm carrying a firearm is much higher than me actually needing to pull the firearm and protect my life or the life of somebody else. And so I did that math, and knowing that getting fired for carrying a firearm against company policy is one of those things that might have a tendency to follow you around a bit. I did not, but when things got a little salty, it was not a level of danger that I was going to tell my boss, look, until these things get resolved, don't expect to see me. I consider this an unsafe workplace. It did not reach that level, but at the same time, the math switched, and the chances of me needing to use a firearm to defend my life or the lives of others was high enough that I may have chosen, but maybe not. Maybe this is all in Minecraft to disobey that ordinance. Of course, also I was, if in fact this is a true story, which in no way, shape, or form is it, I would have carried in the most deep concealment holster that I have.
Well, I mean, when it comes to simply violating the terms of your employer's contract, for lack of a better word, mm-hmm. I mean, that's a case where I'm comfortable saying, well, concealed means concealed. Mm-hmm. Don't get caught, no harm, no foul. I have a problem with saying that in a case where it might seem like I am encouraging people to break the law, what with me being a public figure and the head of Operation Blazing Sword and Pink Pistols. I can't in good conscience say that.
That's a fair statement. And again, yeah, she's, for the fact that she is a member of the New York government, she is certainly to some level part of the problem. Whether or not she's got a New York carry permit. So there's certainly something to be said about that towards whether she's pro-gun or not. I also note that Donald Trump had a New York carry permit, as does Howard Stern, all of which are not particularly friendly to our 2A rights. So yeah, there's, you raise all valid points. My disagreement with you is entirely in nuance, for what's going on. Again, I'm really more going on I have full understanding of what's going on here, but, yeah, she was arrested for this and, is facing felony charges, which is, no joke, because that would mean that not only does her permit go away, which it's probably already is, but also her right to keep and bear arms is also gone. So I'm wondering if this is in part possibly going to turn into a Supreme Court challenge. That would be an interesting statement if she was to challenge the punishment on Second Amendment rights. I don't know. It'd be interesting to see, especially since I wonder how the rules work for if the law that you are being charged with is deemed unconstitutional.
I would think the charges would be dropped, but I'm so not a lawyer.
Yeah, I don't know how that goes through. I mean, obviously you've got the ipso facto statement of yes, if you're charged with selling marijuana, 2 days before recreational marijuana suddenly becomes legal, or you're found with a joint in your possession just before recreational marijuana becomes legal. It doesn't matter. You still were violating the crime at the time. But in this case, what if the courts rule that the law should have never been in place in the first place because it's unconstitutional?
Well, according to Wikipedia, so take all that accuracy with a grain of salt, but according to this, Inna Vernikov was a Democrat up till 2020, but in 2021, she now became a member of the Republican Party. I only bring that up because it might lend credence to your theory, which I don't think you stated outright, but it might be that she decided to be a sacrificial lamb in order to have standing, in order to help sue New York City or state for unconstitutional carry laws.
I mean, it's certainly in the realm of possibility, but we will see. It would be nice if it happens.
Yeah, we'll definitely find out.
I will also note that in states that are deeply blue or red, there's also games that can be played. Michael Bloomberg is famous for being the mayor of New York for, I think, his first 2 terms, and then his third totally legal term, though nobody else is allowed to do it. He was his third term. He changed his registration to independent, but he ran as a Republican for his first 2 terms as mayor of New York City, and he was a lifelong Democrat, and he ran for president as a Democrat, and overall, one could say that while he was very fiscally he's very fiscally conservative overall, it's pretty hard pressed to find much Republican about him. And so, it was all just, if you're in a deep blue city like New York City, there's going to be a Democrat primary, but there may not be a Republican primary. And he decided to save himself a little bit of money and shortcut himself onto the ballot by running as a Republican.
Okay, I actually thought you brought Bloomberg up because you were going to mention how he's an anti-gun politician, but yet he has a security detail such that when he vacationed in the Bermudas, his security detail was more heavily armed than the Bermudan security forces there.
Correct. Yep. No, he had a more heavily armed security detail than the Prime Minister of Bermuda. He probably still does. So yeah, no, but I was really more pointing out the fact that her political switch could indicate an ideological switch or something else, but it also could have just been a simple electioneering trick.
Well, according to Wikipedia, again, the font of all knowledge that is accurate, she changed parties due to a rise of anti-Semitism.
That's not hard to believe, especially given the context of this story.
Yeah. She switched parties and became a Republican to run for office after seeing the rise in anti-Semitism and what she sees as socialism in New York City.
Fair enough.
So,
well, we wish her luck. I mean, she definitely bought the ticket and she's taken the ride. She did break the law. You can't don't do the crime if you can't do the time. But I do hope that she will challenge it, because there's certainly an argument to be made. Speaking
of New York.
Yeah, speaking of loaded guns found in New York, I really picked this. There's not really much to talk about on this except for just the laws and the how's that gun control working out for you, New York. A 19-year-old man was found to have a loaded semi-automatic weapon. What's the I thought the title was more hysterical. was found in his backpack. And Aaron, do you recognize the weapon in the picture?
Yeah, it's a Tech 22.
That is correct. It is a Tech 22.
Which is like a Tech 9, except instead of being chambered in 9mm, it's chambered in 22 long rifle.
Yes. And feeds from, I looked it up, it feeds from Ruger 1022 magazines.
Mm-hmm.
And so, yes, it was a Tech 22. And, I thought I remember seeing, I thought they gave the round count. It had an odd number of rounds in it, which says that he either bought the magazine loaded from whoever his black market gun dealer was, and fired it a few times just to try it out, but didn't have anything else to reload it, or just didn't have enough ammo to fill it all the way up. But I'm not seeing that anymore. I wonder if they've edited the story since I uploaded it. But
what I find interesting here is that the only reason the gun was found is because transit police saw him walk through the emergency exit and onto the train platform. Mm-hmm. In other words, bypassing having to buy a ticket.
Yeah, it's fair jumping.
And so when they stopped him, they searched his belongings. They recovered the gun inside a drawstring bag he was carrying. Mm-hmm. So if he had paid his ticket, he very likely would not have been caught.
Yes. And I will note that a 22 pistol is still a deadly weapon. I hate it when I see like news reports talking about, especially when you get like the anti-gun reporter who's never shot before and goes to the gun range and say, "Oh, they started me off at a 22, which was basically a glorified BB gun." Bobby Kennedy could not be reached for comment on that one. But 20.
Well, I mean, on the one hand, compared to other self-defense rounds, it is a pop gun. But on the other hand, I sure as hell don't want to be shot by one.
No, nope. So yeah, this is not something to be laughed at. Just the fact that he caught illegally. Number one, New York thinks that their gun control laws work, and they clearly don't. And number two, this guy was caught carrying such an unwieldy piece of crap. Apology to George Kellgren, who invented it. But we all know about Kel-Tec's design teams.
Bring in the miniature train with the rails of coke on it.
Yes. Now this one you said to me, and do you want to take it, or do you want me to take it? I absolutely love this story. I think you must have felt that this had Weer'd written all over it, because it does have Weer'd written all over it.
It does, and also because it comes from a friend of the show, and also my friend. We're not like personal friends, although that'd be fine. But yeah, it comes from us via Tom Knighton at Bearing Arms. And Tom. So Weer'd Beard, this has your name on it, so it's yours.
Yes. The title is Study Claims to Find Troubling, in scare quotes, Habits in Pro-Gun States. And Tom does a great job of essentially doing a weird audio fisk of this, but in text, with pointing out the fact that so this is a study from Rutgers, and it's a mess. It's a mess.
Well, not just Rutgers. It comes from the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center.
Oh, that's true.
At Rutgers. So, I mean, no bias there.
Yeah, I wonder if they've taken a grant from Michael Bloomberg. But they were examining data from the states of New Jersey, Minnesota, Mississippi, Colorado, and Texas. And it says here the states were selected for their significant differences in geography, politics, culture, and gun policies. Let's see. And it was saying gun owners from Mississippi and Texas stood out for riskier behaviors, such as more frequently storing loaded guns, carrying firearms outside their home, and often storing in Mississippi, often stored firearms openly in their vehicles.
So hang on. If you're carrying a firearm on your person for self-defense, you're carrying it outside the home.
Mm-hmm.
And so even if you are a licensed and thoroughly background checked concealed carrier, that's considered risky behavior by the New Jersey Gun Violence Research Center.
Well, given that concealed carry is essentially illegal in New Jersey, effectively illegal is a great way to point it. And they have done their own post-Nice SERPA law that essentially makes it so that, yes, okay, now you can get your concealed carry permit, though who knows, they might be like New York where they're saying that you can now get your permit, but people aren't getting permits. So yeah, if you're in a state where you think such behavior is reasonable, then yes, that is risky. And also the storing loaded guns, like I get the impression it's like, I mean, I'm in my pajamas and having a drink while we're recording the show. So my guns are all locked up right now. But, yeah, the social ones, the ones that if I'm going to need in a hurry, they're all loaded. Why would I unload them? Especially my semi-autos where you have a risk of round setback. You know, the idea of calling that a riskier behavior. Well, those people don't like follow like police stations and all that where they have like some police departments have excessive administrative handling where, oh, you're going into this certain area. You need to unholster your weapon. You need to unload it completely, place it in a locker, move into the area, then come back out. Then you have to reload your firearm and go through. But then if you go back in, you have to unload it. And these little antechambers and police stations where the cops are locking their firearms up are like frequent locations for negligent discharges, because if Tam Keel said it best, stop touching it. It goes in the holster and it stays in the holster, and stop touching it. The idea of, pulling the gun out, showing the gun out, unloading it, clearing it, checking it, all of that stuff adds the risk. And yet they're calling what you should do is if you've got a nice locked container, yeah, chuck your gun completely loaded into it. It's going to be fine.
Well, not only that, but also if you have a firearm for self-defense, which is the most popular reason for having a firearm, mm-hmm. and you hear the archetypical bump in the night and you need to go investigate, you don't want to have to spend extra time loading the gun, especially because I'm pretty sure New Jersey would want to keep the ammunition and the firearm separate, mayhap even in separate safes.
Mm-hmm.
The last thing you need to do is first I unlock the gun, then I unlock the ammunition, then I load the gun. If this is a suitably bad situation, like say a home invasion, that amount of time could cost the life of a family member.
And yes, as soon as you started talking about the bump in the night, if you hadn't brought it up, I would have also, all of the prominent anti-gun groups in the United States all recommend essentially, locking up your gun and locking up your ammunition and locking up your ammunition separate from your gun, so that, yes, if there is an event where you need to defend your life or the life of your family, you need to go on an Easter egg hunt around your house, unlocking safes and gathering the material components to put your gun back together. So yeah, this is behavior that people from New Jersey think is reasonable. So therefore they would think normal people are being too risky.
Mm-hmm. There's also the very small sample size of this study, which you you may not actually be a statistician, but considering that you worked in the science field, well, you understand how to read surveys. And this information is based on a self-report survey in which around 3,500 people responded. And that is a very, very small sample size. considering, as Tom rightly points out, that Texas alone has nearly 10 million households, more than 35% of which have a gun, which is 3.5 million households in just Texas.
Mm-hmm.
So 3.5 million gun-owning households in Texas, a sample size of 3,500 people. Now, I'm going to say the reason for this is not specifically laziness on behalf of Rutgers. I think it's because the vast majority of gun owners did the equivalent of hanging up or throwing away the letter.
Mm-hmm.
I'm not going to answer.
No, I concur with that. That is that's definitely something that's frequently discussed within self-reported samples of firearms. Is the no? Do you want to tell us about the guns you have? No, I don't think I do.
I don't own any guns, and if I did, I'd lie about them.
Exactly. And but also, what's interesting is they talk about we picked these states thanks to their politics and their geographical differences, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But Tom points out the fact that, man, it really seems like it is deeply cherry-picked data, because they picked, Mississippi and Minnesota, both of which have some extremely high crime numbers. They've got some very, very violent cities with a lot of gang issues. And things like that. Obviously, Texas is also has some large high crime cities as well. And then, but yeah, he notes that why didn't they talk about like Wyoming or New Hampshire, which I always point out. Maine, New Hampshire, and Vermont are three states that I always tend to talk about when I'm talking about comparing of states, because they are states with extremely high gun ownership, extremely lax gun laws, though Vermont is getting even worse. Actually, my nephew just texted me. He just tried to buy a gun, and they have a waiting period now. And I'm like, where did that come from? I didn't even hear about this, but evidently there's a waiting period in Vermont now. Vermont's gone completely crazy. Good luck to the people of Vermont, and I forget what their pro Second Amendment group's going through, but I know that they're having raffles all around the state to raise money so they can do some Supreme Court challenging of their latest gun control laws that are just all of a sudden flowing into that once beautiful state.
July 1st.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, no, I hadn't heard about that at all, and my nephew hadn't either. But then he bought a gun, and now he has to go back and get it. I think it was a couple of days ago now, so he's probably got it now. I don't even know what he got, but yeah, but these states are heavily armed. They have all our constitutional carry. Vermont was like the first quote unquote they just wasn't even constitutional carry. It's just one of those like carry permits. What are those?
Yeah, it was called Vermont carry before it was called constitutional carry.
Yes. And so, yeah, these states all are very, very friendly to both concealed and open carry. They are very, very friendly to gun owners. They are states that have, rural areas, so that both the idea of if you are a farmer or you live out in the mountains or the woods somewhere, then you might want a firearm to protect yourself against dangerous beasties. But they, also have cities that have dangerous beasties as well, that are of the two-legged variety. And yet these states have remarkably low crime numbers. They are literally the safest places that you can live. Also including New Jersey. I'm always going to mention that New Jersey almost always ranks as one of the safest states in the union as well. So, yeah, this is reeks of cherry-picked data, low sample sizes. It's just it's self-reported data, which means that there's no way to verify it. And well, he notes there was a study where they were actually asking people how often they attend church on Sunday, and they were getting massive church attendance numbers. But when they actually looked at the church attendance numbers, well, some of those people that attend church every Sunday have are other places when it comes to Sunday. So, yeah, this was another just standard issue anti-gun scientific study, which means that it's completely full of crap. But I also got a huge kick out of the risky behavior is like Tuesday.
So continuing on this pattern of nonsense, and this is another article that I shared, and I'm going to take this one. So it was pretty recently that we talked about the New Mexico gun shop that seized the Polymer 80 pistol that belonged to a patron who is also a serviceman. And the gun store, for whatever reason, decided that it was an illegal gun. To refresh people's memory, he went into the store, which is Shooter's Den in Albuquerque, and he wanted to buy a holster. And the person behind the counter basically said, well, bring out your gun and we'll fit it to the holster. And the man did so. And when the gun store person, because I don't know if it was the owner or a clerk or whatever, just noticed the fact that there was no serial number on it because it was a Polymer 80, an 80% firearm that the owner finished himself. Owner, the person who owned the gun, not the owner of the store. I am babbling at this point. Good Lord. Whew.
The serviceman had assembled the firearm, had finished and assembled the firearm.
The customer, I should say. I'm sorry, I'm jet lagged. But so anyway, gun store person said, hey, I don't see a serial number on this. Can you give me some identification? And the customer didn't have identification for the gun, which is what the guy was asking for, and produced his identification. And because the owner is also under 21, he couldn't legally buy the gun, but he could legally make one. And so between that and the lack of a serial number, the gun store owner, there we go, decided to confiscate the firearm. And there's been that kerfuffle. I still don't know if the serviceman has gotten his gun back yet, but it's received a lot of press.
I believe he did. I remember hearing somebody say that, but I didn't read it from a verified news source. So, but I believe he did, and well, likely how this story goes, I think it may have happened.
Okay, but all of that is prologue to this story, the actual story. So, and this story broke today, about 30 minutes after midnight. Well, midnight my time. It was substantially earlier in New Mexico. But it says here, and this is just, it's the local news, KOB4. And it says that federal agents, and by that I do mean the ATF, and ironically, when the gun store owner confiscated the firearm, he contacted the ATF. So if he wasn't on their radar then, his store sure was after that. But the ATF went undercover multiple times. They bought guns from the store because a man, and I don't yet know who it is, I don't know if it was the owner or someone else, was making illegal sales and trying to sell, among other things, a fully automatic rifle.
That's a problem.
And that definitely is a problem. So, yeah, the undercover agents have been doing this. Oh, hey, in March. Starting in March, agents say they gave the store a warning and then went back and seized a gun because this person, Anthony Stephen, who I don't know is the owner or not, was breaking licensing and registration rules and selling parts that are illegal when attached. Bullet points. Here's what they say this person was doing illegally. Building guns without a manufacturing license, not completing background checks, not reporting sales, not charging tax. They say he was illegally selling a rifle with a device that makes it fully automatic. I don't know if that was like a drop-in auto sear or something else. And a pistol with a certain stabilizing device. So yeah, apparently this person was breaking all the rules.
Well, maybe some of them. It could have very well been that the device that made it fully automatic might have been something like a forced reset trigger or binary trigger that is contentiously viewed as whether or not it is full auto or not.
Could be, but okay, you can justify that. But the allegations of not completing background checks, ooh, that's highly illegal.
Oh yeah. Hell, the big one that's always going to get you is the not charging tax.
Yeah. Oh man, the ATF is bad enough, but now he's got the IRS on him.
Yeah, the revenuers. So yeah, this is well, I mean, this is behavior unsurprising to someone who would essentially steal a firearm from a customer under color of law.
Yeah, and while I don't know that these were the same person, I don't know that they aren't either. It wouldn't surprise me.
Well, we were doing a little bit of research, and it's most definitely the same firearm, the same FFL, but I don't know.
Oh, it's definitely the same store because there's only one of them in Albuquerque.
Mm-hmm. And so, but also, who's to say that the owner had no idea that any of this stuff was going on?
Well, I mean, if so, the owner's incompetent because if there are sales going on that you don't report, if there are sales going on where you don't charge tax, if there are sales going on where you're not completing background checks, I mean, that's such a staple of your business that you need to be involved in it. And if you don't know what's happening, then you're either incompetent or you're so distant that you need a proper manager.
I concur. So yeah, good riddance.
Yeah, I can't quite find it at the moment, but I'm pretty sure I remember reading or hearing that the store is closed.
Yep, this
it's been shut down and may never open again.
Or if it does, it'll likely be under new management.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and now we have more absolute foolishness. It kind of ties in with the last story. I'm like, why did I put this up with New York? Because we're back to New York, but this ties in well with the 80% kit that the service member had and was illegally confiscated. Is that the state of New York, never to be outdone with stupid and horrible anti-gun laws, is now proposing a law that would make it so that if you buy a 3D printer that has the capability to print a firearm, whether or not you're a gun nut or not, you will need to pass essentially a NICS check.
I mean, it's not the worst law to come out of New York because they'll at least let you own it after passing a check.
Mm-hmm.
But this being New York, they will probably license it and regulate it and make it difficult because that's what they do. This reminds me of the 2013 SAFE Act all over again. You know, the one that they passed in the middle of the night and didn't initially have exemptions for law enforcement, meaning that police officers who were carrying service pistols with more than 10 rounds were committing felonies.
Mm-hmm.
And this is another example of the unintended consequences because there are all sorts of businesses and industries that use 3D printers. Dentists use them to help print out dentures, I do believe. And schools use them both for teaching, but also to manufacture parts for a lot of practical classes. This is going to negatively impact so many people that have nothing to do with firearms. And it's going to have a lot of second and third order repercussions. And yeah, New York, both city and state, just never misses an opportunity to disappoint.
But also another thing to note is that New York is all butthurt because you might be able to print a firearm and sidestep their crappy laws. Well, guess what another thing you can do? I believe Oddball has a 3D printer that he essentially built from parts. He bought various parts and various kits and assembled his own 3D printer.
It's a ghost printer, Weer'd.
Exactly.
Spooky.
Ghost printer that prints ghost guns. The double ghost gun. So yeah, this is one of those things that's like rife for non-compliance, especially since 3D printers are just a thing. So there's also no reason why someone on eBay can't list a purchase of a just because I'm me, a Hitachi magic wand, and the pictures in the listing for this personal massager / personal massager is a picture of a 3D printer, maybe a Hitachi magic wand. I remember seeing I think it was Facebook Marketplace. Someone was selling a copy of Under Siege starring Steven Seagal, and he was selling it for, I want to say $500. And in every single picture, there was a Sig 226 in the pictures of the DVD with Steven Seagal. So
the idea is you buy the DVD and you get the Sig for free.
I mean, I don't know if that was expressly said, Aaron, because buying firearms on Facebook Marketplace is against the rules. But yeah, this is one of those things of it will be easy to sidestep. It will, you mentioned about the fact that the New York, the New York counselor getting arrested for illegally carrying a firearm. And I would note that non-compliance is absolutely an option. And, we're officially getting into, yes, speaking of non-compliance. So I mentioned it a while back. Massachusetts had the, Jim Wallace from the Gun Owners Action League of Massachusetts referred to it as the Lawful Citizens Imprisonment Act because it is. That law, they tried to push it through under Dark of Night, very similar to New York SAFE Act. It was not given much time. It was referred to as a law that simplified and improved our firearms law, and yet it was like 140 pages long. Well, that one got shot down, but they vowed for it to return, and I mentioned when we covered that on the show that it will be back. It is back, and it is not terribly different. It is having, more assault weapons bans and more added features. I think they're still discovering stuff because, again, I want to say that they were saying it's 100, the whole bill or proposed bill is 150 some pages long, or 120, I think they said 120 some pages long. But essentially it's got like added assault weapons ban stuff, added magazine ban. It's also got the crap that is the new hotness in anti-gunness, which is declaring essentially all public spaces gun-free zones unless specifically designated by the owner a place to that you can conceal carry. It's got limitations on essentially trading and lending firearms. It's got some ghost gun stuff in there. It's got a lot of pretty much untenable crap. And I say this ties in well is that the Gun Owners Action League, as well as some very, very prominent gun shops in the state, are essentially just advising, do not comply. This is if this law passes, just simply ignore it, because it's just so untenable. And we've kind of reached this place in Massachusetts where we've been complying with their laws for so long, and it's just getting us more and more and more gun laws. And so they're calling for enough is enough. This is also, I just heard Jim Wallace mention in the Goal podcast that this is the first anti-gun bill that Goal has not submitted amendments to. Normally they will submit some tweaks that if you add this to the law in question, we will tentatively support it. In this case, they're like, yeah, we can't fix this. This is just garbage. We just oppose. So,
well,
yeah.
I seem to recall reading somewhere that due to the outcry, they being the legislators, decided to take another draft, and they actively solicited and got feedback from gun owners, and I assume Goal was in there. But the end result is that they basically said, nah, and threw all of that feedback out.
Yes. So what this was that they had a listening tour and to discuss various gun control laws in the current state of gun control. And it is believed by Goal that it was just simply a ruse to just give them time to write and present this anti-gun law that was done heavily under the influence of Michael Bloomberg's anti-gun groups. And I will note that if you go check out the show notes, there is a news story where it shows the hearing that happened this weekend. And Jim Wallace noted that the Bloomberg funded activists here are on the senior citizen side again. So gone are the fresh young faces of gun control again.
So one of the articles you link talks about how Massachusetts police chiefs have come out against this gun bill. And okay, on the one hand, that is refreshing. It's very nice to see police officers opposing further gun control. But the reason that they oppose it makes me sad. And the main reason, from what I can tell with this article, is that the bill includes a provision that limits where gun owners may bring their weapons, and the bill doesn't carve out off-duty police officers and state troopers. Now, to his credit, he does say criminals won't be deterred by these measures, which is true, but when your main reason for opposing is off-duty and retired Leo doesn't get special exemptions, to me that sounds like, well, if they'd gotten their exemptions, they'd be fine with the bill.
Yeah, and it appeared, well, the Massachusetts police chiefs were opposed to the last one as well, and that was mostly because of the extension of the permitting requirement and requiring more permits, and your local chief law enforcement officer is the essentially the median contact for permitting system, and so they knew that if the permit system was heavily altered, then it was going to be a substantial increase in workload for the police. And so they also opposed it for that.
Oh, great. We have to do more work and more paperwork for the same amount of money. Yep.
So that was the news. There was a lot of it. We practically did a whole show. So I think we have one segment to do, and honestly speaking, looking at the time, it's more than enough.
So in this segment, David tells us why you shouldn't use Bubba's Pissin' Hot hand loads for self-defense.
Hi, and welcome to Gun Lovers and Other Strangers. In this segment, I'd like to discuss and contrast some of the differences between handgun ammunition meant for use on the range and rounds designed for use in a defensive pistol. For those of us who carry a handgun for self-defense purposes, the most common contents of our magazines are one of the many varieties of hollow point or expanding ammunition. However, this type of round tends to be significantly more expensive than traditional full metal jacket target ammunition, often called ball rounds, a reference back to the lead round ball loads of the muzzleloading era. Traditionally, revolvers fired round-nosed lead or lead alloy bullets, and semi-automatic pistols fired round-nosed full-metal jacket bullets with lead or lead alloy cores. These are still fairly common choices for target or plinking ammo. Defensive ammunition also has a metal jacket and usually a lead or lead alloy core. Except instead of completely covering the bullet, the nose of the jacket is open, exposing that core. More on this later. With full metal jacket ammunition, most shooters aren't looking for or expecting Olympic quality accuracy. Generally, what they want is reliable, consistent, reasonably accurate cartridges that won't break the bank. In other words, range ammo. So what's the big deal and why the big price difference? Basically, it comes down to primarily two elements: quality control and quantity of production. If we took a batch of 100 full metal jacket bullets from the same manufacturer and weighed them, they'd have a fairly broad deviation in average weight. For example, a batch of 124 grain 9mm bullets might span 119 grains to 129 grains. Our listeners who reload are most likely already aware of this. However, if we weighed the same number of defensive bullets, say Hornady XTP jacketed hollow points, the weight deviation would likely be considerably smaller. This is because the hollow points are held to a more stringent set of quality control criteria during manufacture. They're also produced in considerably smaller numbers than their full metal jacket brethren. While economy of scale has certain benefits, small-scale production has others. An even more economical option for range ammo is plated bullets. At first glance, they look the same as full metal jacket, but the production process is different. With traditional bullets, the jacket is formed first and the lead core is added later, frequently through a swaging process. Plated bullets reverse that, sort of. The lead core is formed first, then the jacket is electroplated on after. This process is generally less expensive in both equipment and materials than drawing and swaging traditional jacketed bullets, but the plated coating isn't as thick or as tough as the gilding metal used on more common full metal jacket rounds. So velocities can't be pushed as high. This isn't usually a concern when the ammunition is intended for use on the range for target shooting or practice. Defensive bullets are also produced by using a pre-made jacket and either swaging in a lead core or pouring in a metered amount of molten lead. There are also monometal bullets as well, sometimes called monolithic solids. Mostly found in big game rifle cartridges, these bullets are made of a single piece of copper or gilding metal, either with or without a hollow point. The benefit of this type of bullet is primarily that they stay together better and penetrate more deeply. However, they do tend to be even more expensive than other types. With traditional hollow points, the difference in construction is that full metal jacket bullets are open at the base of the bullet and hollow points are open at the front. The nose forming process for defensive bullets is also more complicated, generally involving several steps and including scored or creased areas of the jacket to improve reliable expansion. As I mentioned earlier, quality control of this process is held to a much higher standard, and it's possible to find bullets that didn't make the cut sold as blems. In many cases, these blemishes are only cosmetic, and the bullets are perfectly usable by the reloader. With the proper equipment, hollow points can even be made at home. There's a fellow online who sells dies to make hollow points out of empty cases in various calibers. However, due to the quality control gates I mentioned earlier, I can't recommend they be used for personal defense. If any of our listeners are unsure which defensive ammunition to purchase or are simply overwhelmed by the options and advertising copy, I highly recommend looking at the labs page of the Lucky Gunner website. They've been testing expanding handgun ammunition for quite a while and have a long list of results to peruse. Knowing how a particular handgun behaves with specific ammunition is also very important, and I recommend running at least 40 to 50 rounds of the chosen defensive ammunition through a carry gun before relying on its performance. In the before times, I generally recommended my students shoot at least 50 rounds of target ammunition a week through their carry gun, both to increase confidence, but also to build muscle memory and help them move from slow to smooth in the old adage. No, slow is not smooth, and smooth is not fast. However, starting off slowly until we achieve smooth, and only then working on increasing speed is generally a good process. As I said, that's what I recommended in the before times. Since 2020 and the spike in ammunition prices, I've changed my suggestion to more like 50 to 100 rounds a month. More, of course, is better. So I urge everyone to buy more range ammo, continue practicing, and improve their skills. Have fun and safe shooting.
Here's your
Fudge.
fucking outro. I like tacos.
That about wraps up this segment. If you have any questions for me or suggestions for future segments or a comment on a past segment, please post them on the Assorted Calibers Podcast Facebook or MeWe pages, and Aaron or Weer'd will make sure I see them. I'm also a contributor on the Blue Collar Prepping blog, which can be found at bluecollarprepping.blogspot.com. Finally, I'm a published author, and books with my stories can be found on Amazon under the names Brennebach and David Bach. That's all for now. Thanks for listening. I'm David, and this is Gun Lovers and Other Strangers.
I mean, you alluded to it in your intro, Aaron, but you probably shouldn't use social ammo that you hand-loaded yourself. I mean, honestly, if anything, it's just for the weatherproofing. The fact that they do just a really good job at sealing up the primer pockets and sealing up the necks of the bullets, so that in the event that you are walking in the rain carrying your firearm or otherwise, your ammo is going to still go bang when you pull the trigger.
And when it comes to defensive ammo, you want that.
Yeah.
Failure to fires are annoying at the range. They're potentially deadly in self-defense situations.
Mm-hmm. Especially with some firearms that have particularly short travels, that ejecting a live cartridge might be a little more spirited than you think.
So I talked about shooting the 45 Long Colt, and I don't remember what model it was, unfortunately. But I had no problems when I shot it, but someone else shot it. And these were, they were very obviously purchased because, they came in a sealed bag and the seal was broken. I don't know what all the grain weight on them was, but someone else shot it. And he had two rounds that failed to fire, and so he went back through them again, and one of them fired, but the second one didn't. And when we ejected it, I mean, there were two hammer strikes on the primer, and it still didn't go off. Don't know why. And I showed it to the gun owner, who's like, wow, not just one, but two, and it still didn't go off. I said, yeah, what do you want to do with it? He just shrugged and then threw it off the range, into the dirt and gravel. So yeah, that's the kind of thing you don't want to have happen with your carry ammo. That's bad.
So Aaron, what do you have a favorite social ammo?
I'm not sure if you're asking caliber or brand.
Yes.
Well, I don't. Okay, I have a favorite. It is not based on any sort of scientific reasoning. It's just based on part aesthetics, part gut feeling. But I like I think it's Hornady Critical Defense, the one that has the little plastic tip in the hollow point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's a good idea. Yeah, and the whole point being that one of the things that can cause a hollow point to fail to expand is if that hollow point gets plugged with material. One of the most common ones and most consistent ones is drywall. That gypsum board can just pack a hollow point cavity completely full, and it just will act as a full metal jacket. Yeah. I happen to be extremely loyal to the Speer Federal family. They're all under the same conglomerate, which I believe just got bought out by CZ. I've been hearing a lot of people talking about that. I haven't really followed it myself.
So what's the difference between Speer Federal and Speer Gold Dot?
Well, no. I means that the Speer Federal and CCI are all a conglomerate together.
Oh,
so your CCI Stingers, your Speer Gold Dots, your and your Federal American Eagle and your Federal HSTs and Hydra-Shocks are all made by the same company.
Oh, okay, I didn't know that.
The same parent company, at least. I don't know exactly how it works, but they have a massive booth at NRAM every single year because it's just like, yeah, we're all going to be together under one roof. So they got the CCI rimfires on one side, and they got the Gold Dots and Spear Lawman and stuff like that, and then on the other side they've got the Federal stuff. But yeah, I like. Well, I have. I'm in love with it. The HST, which is a bonded hollow point, by Federal. they make a 230 grain plus P 45 ACP. Most of the 45 ACP plus P loads are the lighter bullets. And anyone who knows me knows that I want the chunkiest bullet I can throw at you. And,
okay, so to answer your question, CCI, Federal Premium, Alliant Powder, all these other things are under Bushnell.
Okay.
But Bushnell is owned by Vista Outdoor, and it's the parent company to all sorts of things.
Okay. Interesting.
Right.
But either way, the federal HST, I like the fact that they can put a plus P on the heavy boys. And so, yeah, it's, so my big slow 45 ACPs, if you cause enough problems and F around and find out, you will find out that my slow boys are still much slower than anything Aaron's going to throw at people. Well, actually, no, you've been carrying a 380 recently, so it may actually be faster than your 380s. But yeah, they'll be heavy, but they get a little pep in their step. I think it's like 910 feet per second for a 230 grain hollow point, which is very confidence boosting. And then also I have I also really like the Spear Gold Dots. I like the bonded ammo. David mentioned it, and yeah, the whole point of your handgun ammo, it's not got a lot of power, so you want it as concentrated as can be, and by having the jacket not separate is a very, very good thing in my opinion.
I don't know if it's still true, but about 10 years ago when I first started carrying, I did some research, and Spear Gold Dot was the ammunition of choice, not just of Florida troopers, but it seemed to be of most Leo in the United States. Yeah. And I don't know if that's changed or not.
Consistently. I mean, I know for a fact that for a while HST was exclusively for law enforcement, and then they lifted it. Like I remember my local gun shop was selling it for like really, really cheap. Like I think less than 50 cents a round prices, because it was law enforcement prices. And then for a while it disappeared and you couldn't get any. And luckily I had bought a whole ton of it at very, very cheap prices. I had stacked it pretty deep, and then it came back later. They decided that no, they were going to make it open to the public, but the price did go up. But yeah, Gold Dots is very, very heavily. I know HST has been pushed heavily for law enforcement, but certainly most times when I read about, law enforcement shootings where they actually do mention the bullet make, Gold Dot does get seen mentioned a lot.
Now, if Spear ever made a bullet that had the polymer tip on it, I would be all over that like flies on dog poo.
Yeah, I don't know if Hornady has enough copyright on that they that they can do that or not. Because one of the key things on the Hornady critical defense duty, I forget which one's which and what the difference is, but it's not only does it have a polymer tip, but it's not like a VMAX bullet where it's got the hard plastic tip on it to add streamlining and possibly to aid in expansion, but it's kind of like soft and gooey, so that it's not going to hang up on any of the action of the semi-auto. But you know who will never hang up in a semi-auto?
I mean, I know you want me to say our listeners, but that sounds really bad.
I know you want me to say that, but I don't want to. Well, we love our listeners.
We certainly don't want to shoot them with hollow points or any kind of bullet.
No,
to find out whether or not you'll hang up the expansion.
No, I want to hug each and every one of you if you'll let me. Yes, thank you so much for listening to this show. We really appreciate that, and we appreciate you, like Aaron calling the audible and just running an impromptu show, and David editing it. Come on, guys. You guys were awesome. Thank you so much. That was really, really good. And the listeners, thank you. I'm thanking you on behalf of me and on behalf of the listeners. But we also like to support our patrons. To go on Patreon, go to patreon.com/Assorted podcast to sign up. You get an early release of the podcast, which wasn't quite as early last week's. Apologies on
But
that.
hey, you got one, and you wouldn't have gotten one if I hadn't done it. So,
Yep.
late is better than no podcast.
Correct. Yes, patrons get an early release of the podcast and bonus content like the blooper reels, the ACP film tracks, and the ACP Magnum.
Also, please remember to rate us on Apple Podcasts, the only system where you can rate a podcast. Subscribe to us on the platform of your choice, and share the show with your friends, both online and off.
I got a blog. It's called Weer'dWorld.com, and you can hear me weekly on Handgun Radio on the Firearms Radio Network.
And you can get more from me at Linktree/Aaron Paulette. That's linktree.ee/Aaron Paulette, all one word.
And thanks to Nate Spencer for our lovely music. It's got to be on Jet Lag and Tired. Got to be on that.
Do you have something? Because I don't. No.
Aaron normally does the outro, but she is deeply jet lagged. And I am just extremely tired because I'm a morning person and we record this at night. Our level of awareness is not terribly assorted, but it is. And so is our podcast. Good night, everyone.
Good night.